enough is enough. Enough of the same game already. It's time to get some new ideas into this genre. And if somebody was going to do it, it should be EverQuest. We're at the point right now where we're building something that's both heroic and social. We've taken everything we know about games and MMOs in general, and we're fusing the best parts into an original shape, well, that we hope will create triumph and passion in the gamers that play it. See, we were serious about it being a sandbox game.
Hello, everybody. This is EverCast.
Hi. Oh.
Hey guys.
Hey!
Hello, everybody.
Chad's not hitting the press to touch button.
Wait a
I'm
minute.
pushing. Oh, you know what? I was pushing the wrong button probably. That's why they didn't hear my intro.
Wait
Yeah.
a
That
minute.
could be it.
Guys, wait a minute. It's EverCast.
Are we saying EverQuest again?
No. Let's perk it up a little. Let's go. It's Sunday.
I wonder if they heard our intro.
Yeah,
Did you guys hear our intro?
they should
I
have.
heard it.
Well, of course you guys heard it. Oh, well, if you heard it, they heard it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we have a great show for you all tonight. We do a BardTale here, which we'll introduce in just a second. We also have an amazing interview planned with Robert Lassen, who will be on shortly. We'll show you a little segment. It's great. But first, I wanted to go over a little what we're going to be getting into this episode. We have a lot of really important topics which drive really to home with some of us. First, we're going to be talking about player economies. What is a player economy? Is there such a thing? How could it be implemented? What kind of games we like that have implemented them? And what we can expect from EverQuest next, possibly. We also have, which will be a great topic for debate, the recent Brass article about SOE banning policies. And whether or not we think it's sort of a step in the right direction, or maybe the article might have went over bounds. But we'll go over that a little later. I want to turn over to Flattus right now with our EverQuest, or EverCast news. Take it away, Flattus.
Hi. It's EverCast News. Hey guys, we're kind of light on our news this week. We're still working on our website. We will get that up. We promise we will get that up as soon as we can. We are working hard on it to try to give you guys the best website that we can give you. We're trying to, make it as user-friendly as possible and trying to give you guys forums and all that fun stuff. We will deliver. I will try to deliver the best we can. One other big thing, though. We are nominated for a Stoppy. If everyone in the channel would like to go to stopcast.net and go vote for us, we are in the... Let's see. We are in the most family-friendly podcast. And if you guys could please go vote. We need the votes. We want to win. A lot of the other podcasts that were nominated are Warcraft podcasts, and we're the only EverQuest podcast out there that was nominated for a Stoppy. So please, go vote. We want to win. We want to show up EverQuest next. So please go do that for us. That'd be awesome.
Fantastic. Now, as you guys notice, we do have BardTale over there in the corner. Tannlin, would you like to go ahead and introduce him?
Yeah, sure. BardTale has been one of the persons who's watched all the shows. I talk to him on a regular basis in the EverQuest Next IRC channel. He got a hold of me and asked if he could be on the show. And we will bring, if you get a hold of us, we will try and bring you up on the show. So, BardTale, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello everybody. My name's BardTale. I started my gaming back in '96, and that was originally Dragon Realms for anybody who remembers that archaic text-based mud thing. Anyways, I went to found EverQuest in '99, and since then bounced around from different MMOs, etc., etc., etc. But EverQuest is still my one true love.
Sounds like a man I take to heart right there.
Short and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I know you don't want to go. Y'all probably don't want to hear a detailed history of everything that I've played, but
It's a quiet
What do you
dog
like
that you
about
have.
EverQuest?
say again.
Tannlin was bringing up your dog, and I was
Oh.
asking why you. What do you like about EverQuest so much? Why is it the one game that you always return to?
Well, back in '99, it was Magic, 3D game. But over the years, I realized it's the community. And compared to other games nowadays, it may have very archaic systems, but like I said, it's the community that I keep going back to. Uh, there's people that's played for 13, 14 years, and they're all great people, and you can't beat that in a lot of the newer games.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of us do. Raise your hand if you love the EverQuest Next or EverQuest community, and that's why you like EverQuest. Flattus disagrees. I think you can.
Can I raise?
Dang.
Just
Goes
raise
pretty
our
cool.
hand for the Sony community because it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be limited to one of their games or just
Well-
a couple of their games or even just the EverQuest games because I've been playing a lot of them lately and it seems to be a Sony thing rather than just a
I mean,
individual game.
a lot of people say like shooter communities are bad, but look at the PlanetSide 2 community.
Is it
That's-
pretty good?
That
Yeah.
is pretty good. Yes, it's pretty amazing, especially for a shooter, and especially for like such a big popular online shooter. I'm actually quite amazed how well like what people come up with community wise. So I think it's definitely an SOE thing to a
I
degree.
I think it could be in big part because it does draw a more adult audience. I'm not talking the other side of adult. I'm talking more mature audience.
I think it has to do with the level of cooperation that PlanetSide 2 requires. Because you can have a shooter game where you have like teams of 5 and 10, but is there another shooter MMO out there where you can have organizations of like 40 or more people going at it?
God, I brainwashed Tannlin.
Yeah, you can, yeah, but it's hard. I mean, I've been in organizations like that in Battlefield 3, but it's a lot harder to do because PlanetSide 2 is a lot more accessible and makes it a lot easier for you to do so. So with those tools, I guess that kind of fosters a quite a good community.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, real quick. I don't want to play like devil's advocate, but the Enclave, what was that last year, right? That guy Buzz and the Enclave, that was pretty serious stuff.
Yeah,
But I will take that as a one guild or outfit incident. And if you look at the history of the Enclave, this is not their first run in because they have a long history of griefing and exploiting and just doing all sorts of the stuff that gets you banned from video games. That's what they've done.
I can name at least 3 games that they were involved in that they got banned from.
Well, that's
Well,
not
I only
trash.
know-
Let's
I
not
only
trash.
know- I only know.
Oh, it's not
but-
trash, trust me.
Anyways,
Well-
PlanetSide isn't even our game, so it's okay.
Right.
But on the same topic of communities, I'd like to bring up the recent article that was posted in GameIndustry.biz. Now, I don't know if you all have been able to see it yet, but basically it was an interview with the Director of Global Communication Relations at, wow, that is a Global Community Relations. Let's take out the communication there. Linda Carlson. You guys know her better as Brass, the bearded dwarf. She's amazing. We all know. A lot of us have been able to meet her, which is just fantastic. But there was a recent interview, and have you all seen it first off?
No, this is the first time seeing it.
I'm showing it to the stream right now.
Awesome. So basically, there's a couple things I'd like to point out. First, she talks about why communities can be so great. But then she goes immediately into how communities can be bad and the bullying that can happen. I think she calls it, let's see, that sort of dedication can be inspiring, but the sense of entitlement it engenders can also manifest in unpleasant ways. And the trolls and bullies that blight online communities and the industry is now only beginning to understand its potency. So she really gives, not only does she set the scene to where this is a really important topic to be focusing on for game developers and those who have online games, but also how vital it really is on, or how toxic, let me put it that way, how toxic it can be on the community. Do you guys have any, I guess you were talking about Enclave, any run-in with trolls in online games?
I
Yes. Daily.
Daily.
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
all the time.
the way I read that article also, I mean, it got quite a little bit of traction on Twitter, mostly of people who basically she said one thing, and that is basically means it doesn't matter if you're on our SOE forums or if you're exploiting in our games or tweeting to developers or being toxic in general. If you cross a line, if you don't follow our standards, we will ban you from all our games. And that got kind of taken in a bad way by a lot of people, which I out loud question like why. But I think this was mostly in response to like the bullying that some developers have been like
Accused of a
getting.
little bit?
Yes, and that's not even at SOE, but that's just something that is that is developing in the industry in general, in my opinion, where like one developer is seen as in the community as the bad guy, and like because of him, my class is now useless or stuff like that. And I do think that those standards are extremely important to like also communicate openly and clearly. But once someone crosses the line, why not? Like, why
I
not just get rid of those toxic players? Because
well,
they're really not there for anything useful.
I agree. And I agree in this weird sort of way that because the SOE is the free to play, they say that they want to lower the barrier to entry. They want you to feel free to come in and try out their games, and that should encourage people to keep coming back. And that creates that sense of community because there is no barrier to entry. And then they're realizing that one of the things that keeps people from playing online video games is that dealing with those harsh people that are rude and the trolls and everything, and basically they're whether or not they've actively done it so far, they're definitely sending the message out there that says, hey, this is a free community and you can be part of it, or you can't, or you can be contrary to what we're trying to build, and if you're going to be contrary to it, goodbye, we don't want you here because we want this to be a better place than all those other things. And with other subscription based ones, I would say that they wouldn't take this policy because they're like, hey, if you're willing to pay, keep coming back.
Well, I don't really think that SU is really that worried about losing customers, because the same article also specifically says that they're talking about a very small percentage. But
It does. It says like
I do wonder though
0.05%.
if like with the free to play genre, it's really hard to actually keep the players that you don't want out of your game, right? So I'm more thinking if we're moving to a more of an approach where you need to make a small transaction to actually verify your identity, which I mean in a free to play game is easy. I mean
Well,
everyone easily spends a few bucks, right? So
Yeah.
if I can interject here in that, Second Life when it first started, it was it started off where you actually had to have a subscription or pay a small amount to actually get in and make your account. But after that, you know, they decided to go free to play many years later. Long story short, there was still a lot of trolls that came in. They kept making new accounts, and they they were able to bring down entire continents in that game. You know, even with the $9.99 entry fee.
That's true. I don't think free to play like
I mean,
creates a toxic
the
community.
the
I mean,
the the big thing, I mean, look at subscription based MMOs. Most of the gold farmers, people that are actively exploiting, doing malicious trades, all of that stuff is not because they actually buy a new box. Most of that stuff comes from credit card fraud, accounts from other people that are compromised. So, in that regard, forcing people to buy something doesn't necessarily keep people out, which is a very valid point.
Even look at that other game that we shall not mention by the Snowstorm people.
You can go ahead and say it. We talk about it all the time.
No, I say it for my own benefit.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, in order to actually get on the game, well, I apologize. You can play up to level 20, but you're severely restricted in your chat channels. But in order to actually get out into the world, and if you're the type of person who wanted to troll, you'd still have to pay that $14.99 a month. But
here's the thing: if someone wants to troll, they're gonna pay to troll. Like if these people enjoy doing these things, it's not like they're. I know people who have been banned from PlanetSide 2 via like a hardware ban, and they totally like switched out their hardware and their computer to come back. And if they're gonna buy new hardware for their computer, why wouldn't they just pay for subscription in a different game? I don't think it has anything to do with free to play itself. Just that more people are playing, so your percentage chances go up.
No, and I think that the reason that Sony is going to try and be a little bit more strict with the policies that they put in place to protect their community isn't because it's a free to play community, because that might invite more people to troll it, but because it's a free to play community and they want to keep that barrier to entry low. They want to make more people feel comfortable coming in.
Yeah.
So it's more about here's the sign on the gate saying, hey, these are the standards that we expect, and if you're not going to abide by those standards, go away, so that the people that are coming in through the door recognize that, hey, this might be a safer community or a more pleasant community than what I might find in some other games. And again, that's all anecdotal. I have no idea. All I know is that whatever SOE so far has been doing, it does create good communities. And so you just kind of have to, do we trust them to know more about that end than we do? Or do we say that, no, I don't think that this policy is good?
Okay, I see a major problem here. Do you guys remember, for one, it's sort of censorship. So that brings a lot of problems with it.
And I didn't even
talk. It has to do with more, how far is SOE going to take it? There's been times in the past where there's been a problem with the game, and a very vocal few on the forums, not even necessarily breaking the terms of service, but they kind of bended the terms of service to delete those posts. And there's been censorship before. And think of other companies. You guys remember the War Z when that came out, and people were asking for refunds, and the developers were just deleting the posts, saying, "Oh no, we're not getting anything. I don't know what you're talking about."
That went quite a bit further than that as well.
Knights of the Old Republic did the same thing, if I remember.
Yep. So there has to be a line between mediating towards a pleasant community and censoring people who disagree with your product.
But let's pull it back a little bit towards like other media too, because we're only talking about official SOE media. But like, what is your view on, for example, say a developer's being harassed by someone on Twitter, like consistently?
I absolutely think that's important.
Okay, so now let's go a step further. Now, say us as fan sites, podcast, whatever you want to call it, we are constantly being harassed by, I don't know, another podcast, a fan that's just...
I see what you're getting at.
So, how far should that go? Because I personally do not think that is SOE's trouble. They might want to protect the community, but quite honestly, if we are saying to developers that they need to be mature enough to at times just take the negative feedback, we need to be mature enough to just not care about the trolls. So, do you guys think a ban like that would be valid? Say we are getting the death threats or whatever, or like,
Well, yes,
Gall, please shut up, just
But
die.
no,
I think death
Gall,
threats
die.
should be
I don't
addressed.
think
I will
it's
be
Especially
Sony's.
absolutely perfect that if I get a death threat over this podcast, my first phone call isn't going to be to SOE, it's going to be to the police. Bottom line. Now, if it,
It's not
now if
Sony's
it's
job.
now if it's harassment, like where it's not threats, it's just other stuff that's not what I would consider criminal. You're right. That is a gray area, where it's not criminal, but it is interfering with my ability to enjoy the game or the community.
Wouldn't
Go
wouldn't
on.
that fall under defamation of character?
Well, see, that's where
Yeah,
we're like,
but guys, let's be realistic though. It's impossible to actually do something on that on the internet.
Pretty
Right.
hard, yes.
You
it
you will
requires a lot
spend
of
weeks
resources.
to actually prove that someone is someone, and there are very little success stories in that area. So
Yeah.
let's pull that back a little bit. And what do you guys think? Should SOE go into that, or should it just stay out of that, and we should deal with it ourselves?
I think it
Because
should
that's
ban
the answer I
people
want to hear from
on
you
that
guys.
accord. I say ban. Just
I
if,
mean,
if it's causing the developers problems, then I think they have a right to. They're offering a service, aren't they? And you can sort of deny service to people based on things, very limited things, I guess, in now today's day and age. But I think death threats might be one of those things where you can kick somebody out of your restaurant per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, I'll be the first to say it. Who hasn't been bullied before? Like, I mean, I could do one of two things. I can just ignore it and hope the bully goes away, or I can keep getting picked on and see if that resolves itself. I can stand up
yeah,
for myself. Or if Sony's doing something to try to, make a stance, even if they may not be able to, at least they're doing something. Most
Yeah.
game companies don't care. Like
I,
they'll let look at War. I mean, unless it's severe, you can block somebody on Warcraft. You'll still nothing happens. Like they cursed at you. They flamed you in the middle of something, and you can sit there and report them.
yeah.
How often does something happen?
Well, see,
How
that's
do
the other
you
thing.
know something happens?
See, and that's the difference between like ArenaNet and Blizzard is because Blizzard, if you make a report, you almost never hear anything back about it. Like they have no feedback, and as a matter of fact, I'll tell you their policy is like, hey, we cannot comment. We cannot tell you what we did or if we did anything. And then, like, that reminds me of that when Arena.net was launched Guild Wars 2 and there were people getting their accounts banned, there was a Reddit thread. And people could say, like, this is my account. Why did I get banned? Or this is wrong. I should never have been banned. And they would be like, oh, really? And they would be like, here is what you said. This is why we banned you. And they were very, hey, if you want to know why you were banned, we'll tell you. And I think that that's also a good step to take if people want to know, like, why.
Yeah, listen,
What this?
You're being a jerk, and here's why you were being a jerk.
Exactly.
Absolutely, we have the proof.
And one more thing, and then I'll let you take over, Bard. Riot, League of Legends, right? They had a professional tournament in Europe, and they banned 3 people that were like in the top of their region to go to this professional tournament. And they outed them by name and said, this is what you said, and this is when you said it, and this is how many times we've taken action against your account. This is actually another account that we had already banned, but it was still you. And they went absolutely 100% public with it. And that gets that to that privacy issue. Is like when you're playing a game, do you have that privacy or not? But at least I respect that Riot announced that they took action against these people, whether or not they had the right to publish those people's names is another gray area. But go on, Bard. What were you going to say?
No, what I was going to say is this all leads back to EverQuest for me. For those of y'all that's played, there was the guide program, and during my stint in Warcraft, I suggested over time and time again to have something like this. And the guides, while they didn't have GM powers, they had the next best thing. And when you submitted a petition, it went to them first, and they were able to, actually see what's going on and help mediate the situation or escalate it to the GMs if it went that way. That said, I think that was another reason why the community was better, because we actually had that intermediary of players policing players.
Yep.
Guide program's great. I'm gonna actually cut in Flattus real quick. There's a major premise of this sort of argument that we're missing. The reason it's so controversial, and it's not so much the articles that we've been seeing in the past about people or developers being bullied. It has to do with this right here. Not only will we ban your forum account, but if it's serious enough, we'll call up customer service and have you banned from all our games. We do not need those individuals as customers, Carlson says most of the offensive and antisocial players. A very influential player high up in a guild will still ban them. And in our games, if you're an exploiter, we don't care who you are, how big your guild is, or how many people you threaten to with you, whatever. That's what we've been talking about. That's a good thing. Here's the problem. We can control anybody who's playing our games, but if we know who you are, I think it might have been can't control. It says can't control. But if we know who you are and you're abusing somebody on Twitter, we will ban your game account. That's the problem. Does SOE, should they be allowed to go on to our social media and things that we might consider more private? Where is the privacy boundary between us using them as a service and them sort of overstretching their authoritative privilege and their banning? If I say something on Twitter, why should I be banned in their game? It's not the same community. Well, it might be the same community, but it's not the same medium. I don't know.
It depends. If you attack me on Twitter, you find out my Twitter handle, and you come after me, and you're like, you suck at PlanetSide, da da da. I would love for someone at SOE to be like,
That's a Twitter problem. That's a Twitter problem. That's their policy.
No,
I'm using a different service.
But if you're deliberately attacking me, at least Sony's doing something and saying, listen, you think you're safe? You think that just because you're out, listen, and
but
Twitter,
I don't think it's their place.
Is this okay?
It's their game.
But this is kind of what it came down to with my question. Maybe that was not clear. But if that person on Twitter is a developer, right? Is it then their place to take action? I think it is. If it is a community member, I think that's a very gray area, and if they're smart, they will stay away from that, in my opinion, because it's not, like you say, it's not their place to police Twitter. On the other hand, though, it's also a little bit naive to think that your community stops at the borders of your own domain, right?
Yeah, but there needs to be a very thin line, a very fine hand. That's what I meant to say. A very fine hand in the way they take action, and it needs to be open, and it needs to be publicized.
I mean,
it shouldn't be done behind closed doors where no one knows what's going on, because what if people are getting banned for these stupid reasons? And
I agree.
I don't trust power. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't either.
I
can't
agree
remember.
there. Go ahead, Bart.
No, I can't remember what game it was. It was years ago, but I played it, and they actually had a public shame board on everybody who was banned. And like I said, I can't remember the name of the game, but it helped deter people from getting on that list.
I do feel that it's important to point out, though, that I mean the cases where we would actually ban was like, those are very extreme cases, obviously. I mean, it's not like you say one thing and you're banned. I mean, SOE is already doing that with like extreme caution, in my opinion, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take since it just came out. Final Fantasy 14 took something they did for the first time in Final Fantasy 11. They brought back the jail system, so if you harass somebody in game, they will GM will port you to jail in the game. You will sit in jail. Your character will lock in jail.
Pretty awesome.
That's all your characters. So no matter what character you log in, you'll sit in jail until the GM comes and deals with you.
That's
I like that.
There's that.
Is a fan-freaking-tastic idea.
But that's the thing. That has been around for years already. That's like, those are old ideas that they're just phased out. I'm not sure why they phased out.
I remember
that they're coming back.
Well, I
my
think a big
first
part of
mud.
that was the reduction of staff to actually monitor servers and just hand it off to a couple interns watching over the petitions.
It is a resource thing, definitely. Omid has a good point. We've only covered a little bit of this article, and in fact, the reason that's sort of blown up is that tiny little sentence about Twitter. We're going out on a limb. I was trying to express why it's controversial to people. Not necessarily that's what the article's fully about, and I do apologize if I came across that way, but the article has a lot of really good points, and she went out on a limb when she did this, so it's taking a risk. We kind of got to move on to our interview with Robert Lassen. I'm going to go ahead and introduce that. But as you can see, it is a heated debate.
It is a huge topic, and I'm sure that before the game launches, we'll come back and talk about it at least one more time. So the author of The Fall of Bastion is an author named Robert Lassen. He lives in England, and because of the time difference, and we're not able to bring him on live to our show, we do have a video interview. We recorded an interview. We're going to play it back for you right now. Again, this is Robert Lassen, of the author of Fall of Bastion. Why don't you start off with telling me a little bit about yourself? I know you're the author of one of the novels, but I'm guessing that you're the author of more than one.
As of now, we've got the one that Sony just posted. There's another one that I've done that's already with them, and they've just contracted me for a third. So they're all short novels, sort of 20,000 words or so, and then I also have a full-length novel coming out at the end of this month. Completely different genre.
Oh, wait, and what genre is that?
The little-known World War II vampire fighter pilot. So
that does sound pretty unique.
It's a niche, I'll be honest. So that's called Wrathful Skies. That comes out 30th September.
And if anybody wants to, they can go to your website and find out how to...
Yeah, robertlassen.com has all the details. There's first 4 chapters free to read on the website, and then when I get time, I try and update the site and throw news up, and same on Facebook. But it's been a busy few months. I won't lie to you.
That's good. So you're writing a novel for an MMO. Does that mean you play MMOs? Do you play any video games?
Not as much as you think. I'm in the Air Force. That's my day job. Have been for 11 years. It's been a fairly busy 11 years. So honestly, I used to love playing a lot of video games. I still occasionally get the chance, but very little between Air Force, writing, family commitments, and so on. I thought when I went to SOE Live, I was completely blown away by EQ Next. Started thinking, right, time to change my life and start playing video games again. But how the powers that be will take that, I don't know. It's going to be difficult to find the time, but I live in hope, let's say.
Yeah. So when you're writing an MMO, what is your sort of creative process for writing an MMO? When you're writing for the story, I'm guessing that they give you a little overview, but do you have a specific creative process that you go through for writing in general, for writing your other novel?
Yeah. Now for the Fall of Bastion, there was a very definite. Okay, this is where your story is going to fit into the world. Here's your start point. Here's your end point. Here's the name of your main character. And that was about it. It was very, very flexible. There was a lot of opportunity for me to then put my own slant on how we got from A to B. I could take it any route I liked, as long as it stuck within the overall arc of the game and the world and the lore. So that had a very definite beginning and end. The story I've subsequently done, which will be, I think they're looking to release it around about January time, is much more of a, okay, here's roughly when we want it to take place. Go for it. So there was even more creative flexibility for me in the second one. So it's really interesting because you have a you have a very loose set of directions of how you're going to do the story, what's actually going to happen. But then you have a huge amount of history and background and races and terrain and all that sort of stuff. That is all there, and it's a question of taking the story you want to tell and kind of squeezing it between all the constraints, without them ever really feeling like constraints, if you follow me. It's a very interesting way to do it, certainly compared to when you're creating something from scratch and you've got complete creative control.
So you're a new author, so you haven't worked with people who already have an established, IP, and they want you to write a story in their IP. This is the first time you've done that?
Yes. Yeah, completely. My Wrathful Skies, for example, is historical to a point. Obviously, it has vampires in it.
Right.
But other than the vampire side, it's historical. So that has its own constraints. You're trying to tell a story in the margins of a very well-known story, i.e. World War II.
Right. So that
had a similar setup that you couldn't just create something completely out there. But certainly with the EQ stuff, it was much more, because they were telling you this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. But don't get me wrong, it didn't feel constraining. It was actually really, really good to work in that kind of environment and have all that knowledge and all that the background and so on to actually work with, instead of having to think of it for yourself in the first place.
Okay. So do you have any favorite authors? Do you have any artists that you look to as like your inspiration?
Yes. Not necessarily inspiration. When I was sort of 16, 17, I was hugely into David Eddings.
Yeah, awesome. He is my favorite. I have my Bulgariad and my Mallorean up on top of my desk right up here.
Well, it was strange because the Belgariad, and still I can pick that up and read it now and still be blown away by how good it is and how good the characters are and how much I care. But then it almost seemed like every other series he did was
right
the same series, just repeated. So I drifted away, and the last few he did, the Belgarath the Sorcerer and so on. I never actually read them.
I have read both of them, and they're good because they're the same. Because there's so much history in the Bulgariad and the Mallorean that when you hear Belgarath's story, he doesn't talk about the books that you've already read. He talks about the stories that they tell in the books that you've already read. He gives a full first-hand account of what happens.
I should probably try them sometime. And as I say, the Belgariad are just still one of the series.
Yeah, in between being in the Air Force and writing your own novels.
Yeah. That's time is not enough of it ever. But then other big, like the Wheel of Time, I made the mistake of going back and thinking when I bought the new one and I had the last one on pre-delivery, and about 2 days before it was released, I thought, I'll go back and read them all just to bring myself back up to speed. And I've just got back to Towers of Midnight, so I still haven't read it. Having ordered it months in advance and received it the day it came out, I still haven't read it because I'm working my way back through. But they're very good. Neil Gaiman, I'm a big fan of.
So you're writing a vampire novel, or you finished the vampire novel. Do you have a favorite vampire author?
Strange though this may sound, I'm not a huge vampires fan. I don't really read vampire books. I know that sounds very odd. I approached Wrathful Skies there were two separate stories I was interested in telling, and one was just a purely historical World War II fighter pilot story. And the other was this idea of, well, what if vampires were real, but existed in secret files and stuff like that, and weren't in the public eye. And then I ended up combining the two. But it was never because I felt some great compelling desire to go out and write a vampire story. But I realized I had what I thought was a very interesting take on the genre, and went for it. So hopefully people will agree that it was an interesting take on it.
Mm-hmm. But fantasy, it sounds like that's your go-to genre if you want to pick up a book and read for pleasure.
Yeah. Although I read a lot of stuff. I read a lot of non-fiction as well these days. If you look at people like Sebastian Junger, I love the way he writes, that ability to bounce from very kind of matter-of-fact, here's something I'm going to teach you about, meteorology, to here's people about to die on a boat, and bounce between the two. And read a lot of the history as well. There's all sorts of stuff. So, but again, it's the problem is finding enough time. So I've got Java trying to install itself in the middle of the conversation.
Okay. So, in one of the first episodes that we ever recorded, I said that I was looking forward to reading the novels, and it's not because I didn't think that just the MMO genre was a little bit stale, because they're talking about how EverQuest Next is going to shake up the genre and introduce new ideas into it. And I said that I thought it wasn't just the MMO, the MMO games in general. I thought it was the whole fantasy genre. Right now feels a little bit stale. Like if you've been reading fantasy since like David Eddings in the early 80s, nothing really new or innovative has come out. I was going to say, do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I disagree to an extent. I think there's some incredibly original stuff out there. There's some really different takes. But I think part of what happens is the stuff that is either very successful or the stuff that makes it to screen always ends up kind of folding back into that rerun of the Lord of the Rings type setup. And the really interesting stuff, and again, a lot of it is older anyway, stuff, Michael Moorcock type stuff that existed on the fringes and had a fan base but never made it into the public consciousness. I think there's some good stuff out there, but yeah, there is that tendency for it to be the same stuff that really makes it big.
Yeah,
how you would make it would then seem stale because you're like, well, I'm sure I've seen this before.
Okay. So Maxwell Alexander Drake, he's kind of he's the person responsible for having all of the novels written.
He was the first person that SOE spoke to and went, you know what, if we were going to go and do this sort of thing, would you be interested? And then it led from there, and it was Drake who said to me, look, SOE are putting out the feelers, would you like to submit an audition piece? And Drake and I were the same publishing house. So I then submitted my audition piece based on his suggestion that I do so. And he's now becoming increasingly involved in it as well. So he's definitely the lead person in the project, something of a mentor to me, if I can sound a bit feeble, I don't know. I'm sure he would be distraught to hear himself described as a mentor, but we did a lot of work together. The two stories, the Last Son of the Teardal and the Full of Bastion, we did an awful lot of the writing process together. Not the actual sitting down and writing, but the plotting out and how they were going to link together. My writing now, the stuff I've been doing for SOE, is the best stuff I've ever written.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and in fact, my absolute favorite thing I've ever written was my audition piece, because I only had 2,000 words, and you just can't afford to waste any. So that was something I thought I was really happy with. And a lot of that in the last 2 or 3 years, I just think I've come on hugely as a writer. And a lot of that is down to Drake's influence and his ability to say, hey, this is good, but it could be so much better if you did A, B, and C. So I'm very grateful to him. He's been a very good influence on me.
Yeah. So I didn't know that you were active duty in the Air Force. Do you mind if I ask you about your educational background? Did you English major or anything like that, or just a fan of writing?
I studied English literature and stuff up to 18, but I was a international politics major. My interests academically all tend to be in history and that sort of thing. But I started writing fiction when I was 7 or 8.
Well, I think that's why Tolkien started writing too. He was really interested in history, and it lent to his stories.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, something like Wrathful Skies, it's very, very clear that my interest in sources is right there. But I still have stories I wrote when I was 8 or 9. It's kind of strange now. I read my stories I wrote when I was 8 to my 6-year-old son. And then I realized that I was a very strange 8-year-old. There's a lot of violence and scorpions and bad juju in my 8-year-old writing.
And that was our interview with Robert Lassen, author of The Fall of Bastion. And I do believe that Flattus has an announcement about the future of EverQuest Next and their ebooks. If Flattus, if you want to take that away.
I do have a small little bit of exclusive news from, get his name correct, Steve Danuser, or aka Morgard on Twitter. There will be the next book is coming out next week, and he let us say exclusively here that you will be seeing that up on EverQuestNext.com. So, guys, the next part of the story. So we'll see how that's going to turn out.
Oh God, I'm so excited.
It's gonna be awesome.
Books are amazing.
Yeah.
I thoroughly
And remember,
enjoy them.
we brought it to you first.
Yep.
New book confirmed.
New book confirmed. Yep.
New book confirmed.
Release next week. Confirmed.
Yeah, we could not get a title out of them, but we
Yeah.
did get the fact that it'll be coming out this next week. So get
And-
excited. Get rid of your Grand Theft Auto, as Call said in chat, and pick up your next ebook.
Right. And as Robert Lassen said in the interview, he's got another book coming out in January. If you enjoyed reading his first one, if you are interested in reading any of his other books, he talked about his book. You can go to his website and check that out. And we might be able to bring him back. He is definitely interested in it.
That's fantastic, man. I can't wait till we get all the authors on together as a roundtable.
Oh, a roundtable with all the authors?
Yeah,
That would
wouldn't
be
it?
pretty cool.
We'll see what we can do. Let's go ahead. Oh, sorry. Flat.
Look at this, we may have to use like a Google Hangout for that.
Yeah. We can maybe test the waters with After Hours being a hangout, right? I don't know. That's a little complicated, I guess, but we can try it out maybe. We're going to go into the name of our show, even though it's like the end of our show. Wow. Do we have 8 minutes left in our show?
We talked a lot about that article.
Wow. We didn't even bring up... Okay, let's bring up economies for the last 8 minutes, so the show is actually on that, and then we'll cover that in After Hours.
Okay. I know that this is Kalbuir's passion. He's talked a lot about it so far amongst us.
Okay, that's my cue, I guess.
Yeah.
So, first a little bit, why is this my passion? Well, I've played games like Eve, Star Wars Galaxies, and Project, what's it called again, damn it? Entropia Universe, which are like the only games that I know of that actually do player-driven economies well. Quickly, for people that are not really familiar with player-driven economies, a player-driven economy is basically somewhere where the player is driving the economy, be it through how items are obtained, how items are crafted, and such. This is something that we basically have been hearing about with every MMO, be it fantasy MMOs, be it space MMOs. Every time in pre-launch, one time or another, it comes up. And with EverQuest Next, it came up again. And every time I get my hopes up, and every time I'm like, well, this is not a player-driven economy, guys. For one thing, it has loot. I get a bunch of gold from just questing. There are a bunch of money sinks at launch, and they get taken out, and the economy spirals out of control. So my question is, like, what are we expecting from EverQuest Next, and like, will it actually be a real player-driven economy, and what does that mean for each individual?
Wow, that was a loaded question.
Yeah. I've only played with the closest to a complete player-driven economy is EVE Online, where everything that you buy, someone else had to go and make or acquire.
Which is really essential.
And one of the other things that I think that really makes EVE a great economy is that there's only one server and there's only one broker for exchanging. Well, I guess you could do direct player to player stuff like that, but that whole concept of only having one server means that you don't have like in World of Warcraft, where you have a high population server will have an economy in one way, a low population server has a totally different economy just because of the amount of players that have money and pushing resources. But what do you guys think?
God, there's so many things.
The reason why it is so important for me is that I have my best memories about MMOs ever was just like crafting, managing my shop. Because Star Wars Galaxies actually had shops. There was an auction house, but the auction house was set up in such a way where you would like have to pay such big fees to get your items, and it was capped at a certain hard limit of how high your price would go, that you would actually have to go pick up your stuff at the actual players' houses. Now, the real fundamental part for me is like when an auction house is essentially implemented, it's very easy to compare prices. At any point, at any time, I can stand in the world and I can know someone wants to sell me a chair. This chair costs 50 gold. I'm not paying more than 50 gold because then I'll just get it from the auction house.
Because it's on the market.
That is such a fundamental part. Then the other part is that like my preferred way of how an economy should work is let's get rid of loot. Every boss just doesn't drop loot anymore. It drops components which you need to bring to crafters, and crafters will build that into stuff for you. Now this is something that a lot of people won't necessarily like.
We should put a disclaimer. We are radicals.
Yes, I am a radical. Oh yeah, half of them would not want to play my games, but hey,
would that idea work? People are
that
motivated
idea would
by
work.
loot. That's the problem. Well, people are really motivated about getting that awesome piece, but it could be based on armor pieces, right? Or like crafting recipes.
No, but I mean, you could make it easier for people to see what the end result of that item could be for them. And then you could make a system where you could commission a crafter, and this is nothing new, because I believe EQ2 does that as well, where you search a crafter and you are in charge of the crafting process, so you would not actually lose your item. But here's another thing why I'm really and this interaction that you have between a crafter and the person that gets the loot is important for your MMO because it creates a social bond between the people.
Yeah.
And not everyone wants to be a crafter, and not everyone has to be a crafter. But that forced interaction between each other creates friends, creates friendships, but just creates, in my opinion, a better community in a way.
Well, here's something, if I may interject here. A lot of people are looking at the crafting per player economies. I can't remember who said it, David or Hamid or somebody. One of the devs has said that specifically you'll be able to buy and sell land. Now,
landmark.
Now, if you look at the other closest thing that we have to that, or at least that I know of, is Second Life. There's players in there that they have literally become land barons. They control.
Right. Yeah. And somebody just brought up in the stream, and I agree, and that one of the things that prohibit like a crafter based economy like that is that the low level crafting, it sucks, and it's a lot of working for
depending on the game.
Well, depending on, that's why I said a lot of games are like that, where the low level part is basically throwing time and resources into a black hole that you almost never see any reward from, with the hope that with the hope that at the end you'll be able to do something with it. But for that time, that first part is almost no fun because it's just throwing time and resources.
Well, it's true, but from Robin's point of view, I think he's going to say this right now. I'm going to say it before him if I can. If you get rid of loot and you get rid of it. It's not so much that the crafting's underpowered. It could be that the drops are overpowered. If you just make the crafting gear as good or better than the stuff that's in the world, then it's never gonna suck per se. Make it relevant.
Go ahead, Flattus.
I am because blowing minds here, but what if the gear just doesn't have stats on it?
Well, they said it didn't, but
so then right there's your even kill playing field, sir.
True.
And then on top of it, what if some of your classes, we're multi-class and 40 classes here. What if some of your classes are crafting classes
that you can throw? Yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work.
One thing I want to point out, though, is that the games where all those low-level crafting items were useless, essentially, were not games where crafting was really important, though. They were all the games that didn't really have a good economy for crafters, and crafting there was also only a matter of clicking a button.
Right.
Which, in my opinion, there hasn't been a proper game with real crafting since for ages, because all you have is just a quest. You collect items, you click the button, and you get a quest reward back. They could have done that, and they had the same thing in my eyes.
Right. Well,
hey guys, I hate to cut you off right here. We are at our mark.
Is it time to take an intermission?
We're gonna take a quick little break. We'll be right back for after hours. Do not go anywhere, because we have some great stuff. Go ahead, Angie. Caeleste.
Really quick. It's okay. Call me Angie. Whatever. Really quick. The quick thing that I wanted to say is I want to put out there that we're planning on doing an episode that pertains to women and women in gaming, and some of the sexism and the costuming and the characters and the whole 9 yards. So we just wanted to put it out there. And if there's a couple of people that are interested in doing that episode with us, well, not a couple, because I think we can only bring on one, but just get in touch with us, because we're trying to get that episode out sooner rather than later, but we're going to take a lot of time to make it really good, because we can't afford to stick our foots in our mouth with such a controversial topic. So we're just putting it out there that we plan on doing this one.
Thank you, Kai. All right, we'll see you guys in a little bit.
Do I get the yeah, Bard, why don't you go ahead and do our camping countdown?
Okay, camping in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Loading, please wait.